So why don't we just kind of pick up again on this theme of food, and it's easy to think about food in terms of yummy, delicious bits of food that might be growing in our allotment or growing nearby, and that's all really important. But we're kind of at the stage where we need to be thinking about the system. And so how can we shift the system? And this is a big question, and there are some really, really nice projects that are oriented in that way. And I see Julie has just put something in the chat about oats. We're going to come back to oats in a minute. And sorry, Julie, that the flow and the timing isn't quite working out to have you come in right now. But I'd like to bring Sophie Patterson in because there has been some really phenomenal work being done in Plymouth around Food Plymouth. And now there's a budding project, Food Devon, or the Devon Food Partnership, kind of along the same lines, and the Torbay Food Partnership, that are all about advancing the sort of regenerative food ecosystem in this area. So Sophie, if you're still there.
Hi, Jay, I am.
There you are. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And let's see, I'm just trying to, why don't you go ahead? I'm going to click on the proper buttons here.
Brilliant. I will carry on talking. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation as well to talk more about Food Plymouth, but also the work more broadly of sustainable food places. So I thought I'd actually start off with a bit of a question to all of you. What would you say springs to mind when you hear the term sustainable food place? Answers in the chat if you fancy giving us your suggestions. It would just be really useful to hear what that phrase brings to mind for you, first of all. And I would like to say as well, sadly, my colleague Rio Bailey couldn't be here this evening from the Devon Food Partnership, but I'll try my very best to stand in her stead and provide an overview of what's happening in Devon as well. Okay, sustainable food places, or sustainable food place, is the phrase that I was just wondering what springs to mind for you. So some answers coming in, great. Brilliant. So resilient local food systems, advocating and promoting sustainable food. Brilliant. Some talk about allotments and market gardens, markets. Great, so quite a bit of variety out there already. That's wonderful to see. And it's very much chiming with the work of the Sustainable Food Places movement. So my next question is, and you don't have to answer this in the chat, but maybe put your hands up if you know where your nearest sustainable food place is. Does anybody know where their nearest sustainable? I can see my colleagues in Food Plymouth there waving madly. Couple of hands maybe. Okay, interesting. That's interesting to know as well. Well, I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview really of what the Sustainable Food Places movement is. So it is a network run by Sustain Food Matters and the Soil Association as a collaboration, funded by the Esme Fairbairn and the National Lottery Community Funds as well. So I think approaching 50 different sustainable food places across the UK at the moment. And very excitingly, having had 8 new awards announced just yesterday, including a gold award for Bristol, which is fantastic news for the Southwest. So sustainable food places is all about taking a whole systems approach to food. And so that's working across a variety of different key areas. And within this, we have this awards framework. So Plymouth received its Bronze Award back in 2015. We're currently working towards silver level status. Yeah, there's a couple now of Gold Award holders. So Bristol, I just mentioned, and Brighton and Hove were the first to achieve their Gold Award just earlier this year as well. So what exactly are these kind of areas of work that we're looking to focus on? Well, one of them is food governance and strategy, which all sounds rather big and scary, but really that's about partnership working, bringing together a wide variety of partners across a local area, whether that's a city, whether it's a borough, whether it's a county, as we see all sorts of different permutations of place in the Sustainable Food Places Network. So food governance and strategy is one of our core 6 themes. Another is a good food movement. And that's really where we see things like campaigns such as the Veg Cities or Sustainable Fish Cities coming into play. And also the involvement at kind of very grassroots community level. So in Plymouth, for example, and I am going to rely heavily on the Plymouth example here, being part of the Food Plymouth team, we've got things like the Generous Earth and the Growing Community Abundance projects, which were led by my colleague Tess, who's also here on the call as well. So that's good food movement. Then we've got healthy food for all. That's again working across a whole range of different organisations. One which springs to mind in the Plymouth context is the Plymouth Food Equality Project. So they are working directly with communities, holding creative workshops, particularly creative, having to do them on Zoom during obviously the COVID lockdowns. And so that's all about learning about people's experiences of food, whether they might be experiencing problems in accessing food as well, and how we can all work together to start to tackle some of those as well. Then we come to the sustainable food economy, which fits in very neatly with Caroline and Jay's and Jonathan's discussions just now. So one example of this that we've been working on recently in Plymouth is the Sustenance Partners Project. Dill is here representing them this evening. And that was part of a research and development project funded by Innovate UK, where we were mapping the local food economy and starting to look at different ways and different tools that we might be able to use to increase their resilience. So Sustenance Partners is a really interesting aspect of the work that we've done in Plymouth. So onto our 5th strand, we've got catering and procurement. So that I'm sure a lot of us will understand is a really, really important part of our food system and something which is integral to how we approach food with a whole food system approach. So in Plymouth, we're really excited that Plymouth City Council have launched their Resurgam local economic recovery initiative in the wake of COVID, and that is very much focused on local procurement. So we're very much interested in what that could mean for food producers locally, and so that's just one example of what could be happening soon on the catering and procurement front. And last but not least, we've got our Food for the Planet, which is encompassing everything really from sustainable regenerative agriculture, how we actually grow our food, all the way through to what we do with food waste at the end of that line as well as tackling things like plastic pollution. So one of the things that we've recently been involved in Plymouth, again led by my colleague Tess, is the Water's Edge plastic pollution series of events, where we've been attempting to raise awareness, particularly on World Environment Day, which we've just had, around plastic pollution, and particularly the role, I don't know if others of you saw articles around some of the 50% or so statistics of food packaging contributing to plastic pollution. So again, that's another important strand of work under Food for the Planet for us. So I've talked quite a lot there. I hope I've provided a little bit of an overview for you of the work of the Sustainable Food Places Network.
Sophie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's been amazing. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say I'll pop loads of links in the chat about how you can get involved, because there's a huge network of different sustainable food places across the UK. We're not necessarily all in the southwest here, so it stretches from Aberdeen all the way down to us here in Plymouth. There's murmurings of Cornwall, starting with Torbay Food Partnership coming online soon, and of course there's the county-wide Devon Food Partnership, as well. So there's definitely a food partnership near you in the Southwest, and we'd really love for you to get in touch with us. If you've got interesting, exciting projects, we'd really, really like to be able to support those.
So, gosh, there's so much going on. It's so hard to squeeze everything in. And I know we want to share every little aspect of what we're doing because all the details are important. This is how we get connected and how we advance the work. But you said something in there about procurement, which caught my ear because there are a number of big institutions in the area, including the councils, who are beginning to become interested in progressive procurement. And there's one strategy I know that's in the works right now to kind of centralize the distribution amongst local producers. But that isn't the only way, is there? Is it?
No, certainly not. And I think kind of one of the major projects to mention in the Southwest context would be the Southwest Food Hub and the work that they're doing with the Crown Commercial Services. At the moment, that's definitely worth checking out. And yeah, I mean, there's just so many challenges really along the catering procurement line. Sorry, Jay.
Can I be a little controversial right now? I wonder, and I'm just going to put you on the spot a little bit because I made in my question I was saying there's one strand is around kind of centralizing. Isn't that what the Devon Food Hub is trying to do? Is kind of create one central hub for local producers to forgive the pun, feed into for big institutions. Is that the kind of thing that's going to privilege the big producers and squeeze out the little sort of really sustainable ones?
That's really interesting. And, I think I don't have all of the details of what the Southwest Food Hub are doing, but that's exactly one of the challenges. And anecdotally, I was in a discussion with colleagues up in the Northwest, actually, and they, would love to have been able to work with their local NHS trust to organise some of the catering around that. But the challenge was that they would need 10,000 bread rolls per day, working on a 60-day credit basis as well. So, finding or building a coalition of bakeries who would be able to possibly meet that demand on any given day, constantly on a 60-day credit basis. These are the sorts of huge kind of hurdles that are in place at the moment. So I think, so much of the effort needs to be around how do we make it easier for small food businesses to form together. I think that's going to be a crucial step.
I think a crucial step. Great. I mean, so part of the problem then, really, or part of the issue here is shifting the culture of how procurement is done amongst the big institutions. And so there's so much emphasis on productivity and efficiency. And really, we need to get away from that kind of economizing thinking because it leads to the kinds of problems that we have to begin with, which is the concentration of wealth in the hands of the few and the kinds of long concentrated supply chains that are vulnerable. And,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Really, I love this idea of more distributed systems of linking up small producers so they can collectively be competitive in the market. And like wondering, is there any technological dimension to this? Are you using information technology as a way of enabling enabling distributed small producers to club together?
That's a really interesting question and sort of relates slightly to the work that the Sustenance Research Project has been doing, not necessarily in the context of procurement per se, but there's a lot of interesting work and research being done, particularly with the Open Food Network, around how do we share data so that all of the different kind of software and food supply distribution networks can work together in ways, communicate to make all of these things easier and hopefully make them more collaborative as well. So
you got to find a way of making
that justice, I'm sure.
Rather than for them. And this sounds like so I say we need to find a way to make the technology work for us rather than for them. And this looks like a really promising exploration.
We shall see.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing,